Hello, I'm Councillor Alison Champion, Mayor of Banyule. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where Council operates, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and I wish to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait elders who may be joining us today. Thank you for celebrating this very proud moment in Council's history. Today, we celebrate the launch of Council's very first Reconciliation Action Plan. Our Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, is a 2-year plan which has been formally endorsed by Reconciliation Australia. It outlines the shared approach that Council will take alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to advance reconciliation at Council and across Banyule. We've undertaken extensive consultation to produce Council's RAP, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's voice is at the forefront of our RAP. And to ensure Council decisions impacting First Nations people's lives are based on shared decision-making, fairness, respect and trust. Council extends much gratitude to Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung elders, Banyule Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community members, and Council staff, service partners and reconciliation networks for all of their efforts to make this important plan a reality. Our vision for reconciliation is a just and equal society where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and heritage are a proud part of our shared national identity. Council recognises to achieve this, we must travel an important journey together and proactively work to reduce division in our communities. So with our RAP, we will work and walk hand in hand with all of those who share our commitment to reconciliation. We will tackle inequity issues and create meaningful pathways towards self-determination for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We will support improvements in social and economic wellbeing and civic participation. We will commit to delivering culturally safe and appropriate services. And we will promote respect for Aboriginal cultural heritage in Banyule. As a council, we are uniquely positioned to create societal change in our communities, and we also have a great responsibility to care for our country. Today, we recognise this new chapter in Council's reconciliation journey and invite all of those who live, work and play and visit Banyule to join us as we take steps to strengthen relationships and communities that value Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, histories and cultures. Please take some time to read our RAP and learn about the journey Council and its partners have gone on to produce this important plan. We invite you to engage with us and we advance reconciliation and build equity, harmony and inclusion for everyone in our communities. Thank you so much for tuning in today to hear about Council's Innovate RAP, and we hope you will join us as we work in unity and solidarity with the First Nations peoples of Australia.
Evening, everybody. I will now open the meeting at 7 p.m. and I will pass you on to the Chief Executive Officer who will read out the formalities.
Thanks, Mayor. Welcome all. This is an ordinary meeting of Council conducted virtually due to the current restrictions we're facing in Victoria. My name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer. Due to the current stage 4 restrictions, the Council meeting will be live streamed via our website and Facebook pages so that residents do not have to attend to be able to participate tonight. Temporary amendments have been made to Council's request to speak and public question processes to allow participation without having to attend the meeting. Requests to speak tonight are in the format of pre-recorded videos and written statements that will be read out on behalf of the residents. From the 23rd of September, Council will be in election caretaker period, leading to the election on the 24th of October. Major decisions are prohibited during an election period and therefore Banyule will not hold any council meetings during this time. This will be the final council meeting until the results of the election are declared in November. We thank you for tuning in tonight and for adapting with us during these changing times. We are continuing to monitor announcements and warnings for the health and safety of all in our community. Rules for public participation during the request to speak process. As nominations have opened for the upcoming election, no comments will be allowed which are considered to be electioneering or attempting to influence the outcome of the elections. Please note that any public questions submitted to tonight's council meeting will not appear in the minutes until after the election period has concluded. Council does not accept questions as part of the request to speak process, and no statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit temporarily applies to all requests to speaks, and the timer will be used and on screen and will sound at 1.5 minute mark a warning so that officers will be able to sum up for the last 30 seconds if your statement is being read out tonight on your behalf. Just to introduce you to who's in attendance tonight, so on screen we currently have councillors, the Mayor, Alison Champion, Deputy Mayor Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, Councillor Craig Langdon, Councillor Tom Malikan and Councillor Wayne Phillips. This evening we are also joined by Directors Kath Brackett, Director of Community Programs, Jeff Glynn, Director of Assets and City Services, Mark Giglio, Director of Corporate Services, Scott Walker, Director of City Development, and also Gina Burden, Manager of Governance and Communications. Also here supporting us tonight are members from Council's Governance and IT and our JETS team coordinating our live stream this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. And on behalf of Banyule City Council, I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung elders, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait elders who may be joining us here today. All right, apologies and leave of absence. Would any councillor like to advise of any leave of absence? Confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary meetings of council held on the 7th of September 2020. Can I please have a councillor move and second? Mover, Councillor Tom Milliken. Second, Councillor Rick Garotti. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Thank you. I'd like to disclose an interest in item 5.1. The interest is that I was involved in the initial discussions and negotiations in the two property owners, and one of the property owners is known to me. Therefore, rather than take any part in the decision of council, even though it's only a deferral, I'd like to declare an interest and vacate the room.
All right, thank you very much, councillor. There are no urgent business items. There are no petitions this evening. Item 3.1, adoption of social enterprise strategy and action plan 2020 to 2025. There is one speaker to the item. So Kavan Hill has presented a video and that will now be played.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Kevin Hill, Ivanhoe. I congratulate Council on its substantive strategy and action plan. I acknowledge Councillor Garotti as the progenitor of the social enterprise concept, and I warmly congratulate the administration team involved in the development of this noble strategy. I will be a strong supporter of the strategy and its implementation going forward. I also agree that the strategy be considered a dynamic strategy that can be modified as necessary, because economic conditions and council budgets will change over time and some elements of the strategy will need to change accordingly. An annual review by council is a good idea. Some minor points for consideration. The role of the support officer should be an annual rotational role, allowing a new appointee to gain experience in a real workplace and providing the opportunity for the incumbent to be engaged in a higher level role depending on performance, job training and aptitude. I note a grammatical error. Recommendation 2 calls for the appointment of a 0.8 EFT Band 3 support officer who is described as an alumni. Should be alumnus, singular. I understand that this alumnus will be recruited from the pool of job trainees engaged by council. This strategy deserves wide support both from council and the private sector as a feeder opportunity for disadvantaged people to gain experiences and training to set them up for long-term gainful employment. I wish the project great success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I please have a councillor move a motion?
I'm happy to move, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rick Garotti. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Tom Milliken. All right, Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, very pleased to be moving this tonight. So the work that Council's doing on social enterprise strategy and action is a key pillar of the commitment that we have made as a council to achieve 1,000 local jobs for 1,000 locals over the coming years. I think the council's already exceeded the target of 100 jobs that was set 2 years ago when we adopted the inclusive jobs motion. So this is all about engaging and activating business and enterprise outside of council and bringing the business community and the community sector and the growing social enterprise sector engaged in the jobs effort. So really pleased to move this, and this is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting around our work toward the 1,000 job target. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rick. Councillor Tom, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, I would, thank you. Yeah, as the Speaker said, this is a very dynamic package, and it's one of the things this council I think we should be very proud of, because we often talk about infrastructure and we talk about things we can put plaques on and so people will remember us, but this is about people. This is about improving people's lives as individuals. But then I always think about when council officers talk about these programs and people coming to council and getting work experience and traineeships and some job experience and how it makes them feel better about their job and makes them feel a bit better about their employee, but it makes them feel better about themselves. So there's that enormous benefit for everybody through this. And I always think that the more successful we all are, the more successful as a community will be. And this is about making sure that everyone has a chance, everyone has an opportunity, and everyone reaches their potential. So this is a package and a program that I think this council can be very proud of, and I'm very happy to support it tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? Okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? Sorry, I haven't seen everybody vote, so either way. So if I can ask again, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. Item 3.2, adoption of inclusive local job strategy and action plan 2020 to 2025. There are no speakers to this item, and there is a motion that differs from the papers.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the amended motion. So that council, so point one is 1 largely as is, but with the following change. 1A, that page 3 of the strategy to include a box at the top of the diagram that sits across all 4 pillars entitled Policy Driver. The text in this box will highlight that it was Council's commitment to inclusive jobs as resolved at the Council meeting on the 4th of June 2018 that has been the driver of the inclusive jobs policy and strategy. Points 2 and 3 remain as is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So Councillor Rick, I'm assuming you are moving the item. Okay, great. Is there a seconder? Councillor Craig Langdon. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll touch briefly on the amendment and then talk to the resolution more broadly. So I just felt, although it's quite a bit of detail there, I thought it was really important to highlight that the policy driver of everything that Council's doing in the inclusive jobs space has been driven from the top. So it's been driven from a collective decision of the Council to get actively involved in direct job creation through Council employment initiatives and then indirect job creation through social enterprise. And on that particular page of the strategy, there's references to a whole range of state and federal policies, and they're great and they're terrific and we welcome and appreciate them. But I think it's really important for the community to know that these things just don't happen out of thin air. These things just don't happen because the state government puts out a policy on social enterprise, for example. These things happen because as a council, we come together and we make the decision in consultation and with the support of our community to back ourselves and do these things. And I think it's really important to have that crystal clear in the strategy, because we know that many other councils in Victoria are looking at our leadership in this space and we want them to follow, we want them to act, but they're going to have to step up to the plate in the way that we did. Now, look, this strategy, boiling it down, is the roadmap for the 1,000 jobs target that I mentioned in the earlier agenda item. And the strategy breaks that down into a number of components: direct council initiatives, social enterprise, engagement with business, working and engaging other councils and other agencies of government. But this is a really ambitious agenda, 1,000 local jobs over the coming years. And I think it's perfectly timed, because we know at the best of times, it's difficult for people with disabilities, from multicultural backgrounds, from our Indigenous communities, from our disadvantaged communities. We know in the best of times, it's difficult for them to get a job. Well, COVID-19 and the economic impacts of that just make it so much more difficult. So this is not only a policy around a social policy, it's actually a core economic and business policy. And so I think that this is going to really help to set up our city and our community as we head into the recovery phase. But in the meantime, we'll be creating so many opportunities for those that desperately need them the most. Really pleased with this. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO, for backing this. And I think it's one of our greatest achievements in this term of council. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Rick, and Councillor Craig, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you. Could not agree with Councillor Grotti more than he already has said. I thought he spoke brilliantly on the subject. And again, I'd like to echo his thoughts totally, and thank the staff for getting on board, and thank all the councillors getting on board. I think it will be one of our major initiatives. I also like displaying it is our initiative. We're not just following lead of the state government. I think we're leading the state government on this front. That's all.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay. Councillor Rick, would you like a right of reply? Okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. And just as a side, I've been informed that there were some communication issues on our website that have just been rectified, so we do apologise for that pause in transmission if you're watching on the website. Welcome back. Moving on. Item 5.1. Council land at the rear of 7A Curzon Street, Ivanhoe, deferral of consideration for submissions for a proposed sale of land. Now, Councillor Wayne has declared a conflict of interest here. So at this point, he is switching off his microphone, he is switching off his screen, and he, as he declared, will leave the room while this item is in progress. Thank you, Councillor Wayne.
Mayor, are you still with me?
I am still with you.
I need to declare what that interest is you've indicated, but I need to do it as well.
I am so sorry. Yeah, of course, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to indicate in 5.1 that I'm declaring an interest, which is the deferral of the land at the rear of 7A Curzon Street. I was originally involved in negotiations between these and the adjoining owners who were initially objectors on behalf of the council. One of the parties is known to me, so on the basis of council now is in a position to have to make a decision, or has been making a decision, I've decided I would declare an interest, vacate the opportunity of taking part and allow council to make the decision by itself. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We will call you back in after we have finished this particular item.
Thank you.
Okay, there is one speaker to the item. A written statement will be read out by Director Jeff Glynn, who is our Director of Assets and City Services.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm reading on behalf of Robin Roberts, and she is speaking for the item. I have sent in a late submission to council officers following a recent viewing of the notice for this land sale on a Chelsworth Ward Council aspirants campaign page. I was immediately alarmed that land so close to the Darebin Creek corridor in this location would be sold and become residential. This is a sensitive location where the corridor is so much in need of every bit of possible tree cover and land area as it is in a narrow area of public land on top of the escarpment. Here, where the shoulder of the creek valley is small and narrow, it is difficult to maintain a suitable native vegetation buffer for the steep, narrow creek valley. With locally Indigenous native vegetation, and every effort must be made to ensure we do all we can to preserve that locally Indigenous buffer. I have spoken with council staff in property and strategic and statutory planning before making my submission, which was sent in after the due date for submissions, to get the full picture of what is happening before mounting my argument. In my submission, I discussed the other overlays that apply and the intention of those overlays and how those intentions have been ignored in this proposal for the sale of the land in an ES01. I will be very pleased that my submission and possibly the submissions of others who will have more time to view the proposal and examine the overlays protecting this land is able to be considered by both staff and councillors as proposed by this recommendation.
Director Jeff, are you still there? We lost you in that last sentence.
The last sentence, I will be very pleased that my submission and possibly the submissions of others who will have more time to view the proposal and examine the overlays protecting this land is able to be considered by both staff and councillors as proposed by this recommendation.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Craig Langdon, can I please have a seconder? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Craig, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, this has been going around council for some time now, and yes, is the latest lot of submissions. I walked the area on Saturday, and the land is so minute, it's ridiculous. To get to it, you'd need to be a mountain goat plus some. I got near it. It was just too dangerous to get to. So the escarpment is so steep, you couldn't get to it. People have done tree planting in the area, trying to protect that escarpment, but I look forward to coming back to council and we finally ticking this situation off.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rick, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Okay, would any other councillor like to speak to the item? None? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Oh, this will be interesting. If anyone is with Councillor Wayne, could they possibly ask him to come back? Oh, look. All right, thank you, Councillor. Welcome back.
From the dead.
Thank the staff for getting him too.
I think I did that last time. Item 5.2, Waterdale Road, Ivanhoe, proposal to place permanent barriers. There are no speakers to this item. There is a motion that differs from the papers. Councillor Peter.
Okay, let me just get that up. There's only a slight amendment to bring clarity to the resolution, with items 1 and 2 brought together and renumbering of items 3 and 4, and that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, my screen keeps flicking off. That's the only reason there's a pause from me. I'm just clicking me back in. All right, thank you very much for that, Councillor. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? That you, Councillor Peter. Okay, and can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Craig Langdon. Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to the item as the mover?
Yes, thank you. Now, this is an item with much attention on it lately, and some very strong views, but I think it's important that I summarise some of the important aspects to this and what the outcome is as a result of this recommendation. And it goes back to 2000 with a traffic, parking and pedestrian plan, where it was first considered. It was then taken into a 2007 public open space plan and incorporated into the Ivanhoe structure plan in 2014. So this concept of a closing Waterdale Road is not something new. It's been considered as a strategic improvement for the Ivanhoe precinct for a long time from these reports inside council. Now, thanks to a local pocket park grant opportunity, the strategic objectives here had the opportunity to come forward and add both further value to the idea of a potential closure of this road and the opportunities that it may present. The closure over the last 14 months has also provided an opportunity to understand what the traffic impacts are if it's to be closed. In summary, there are two opportunities for an improved public open space realm for people, and then a shared area opportunity for both streetscape upgrades for pedestrians and vehicular movements. This is a good report in my view. That not everyone agrees to that. There are some strong views that disagree with that, but it does not finalise the closure of this road yet. And it will enable the broader conversation with the community around this to continue as the pocket park consultation kicks off later in the year, November, December, given COVID restrictions are reduced. And it gives the opportunity for the pocket park to be considered and adopted and agreed to, or leave it as it is approach. So there is that safeguard for the community to participate in this further. The opportunity to assess the safety of 2nd Street and Norman Street crossing in the recommendation is also a welcome addition, and I can see that that is an intersection that may need some work. I think this report goes a long way in explaining the events over time that leads to where we are today. And it's important to read the whole report, I think, for anyone who is interested to truly understand the reason for this change coming forward. I must also mention we've had some very significant contributions over from the community on this matter, and we've heard from one of them this evening. And I shouldn't understate how much work they've put into this to put forward their perspectives and their arguments. And that is partially why we will continue to give the community an opportunity to view their points across and the next stages. And this isn't a closure guaranteed at this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks
Mayor.
very much, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Craig is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the item? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Oh, sorry, Craig, you do? Sorry.
I was finding the mute button first.
Okay, sorry.
I should have put up my hand first. My apologies. I endorse what Councillor Costello said. The reason I'm supporting it is keeping the road closed for the time being. It is not saying it will remain closed. It'll be a further discussion, but I don't want to see it opened in the interim and money wasted. So we're keeping it closed. The final decision on whether we go forth with this will actually be decided by the new Chatsworth councillor. So I think that's what a lot of people are asking for, that it can be decided by the new councillor, and it will be done so, whoever that may be.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom.
Yes, as the councillor said, there's been a lot of discussion about this, and I've received several emails, and I recognise and understand their concerns. The timing of this has been difficult. The public consultation hasn't been ideal, and that's due to several reasons. COVID-19 obviously has been one of those issues. The upcoming election has made this difficult as well. The building works next door that closed this off 14 months ago, which is now coming to an end, but also the grant opportunity coming up in the middle of this. And I think the officers did the right thing applying for a grant. But then because of all those other issues, the community is now saying they don't feel they're being consulted with us and about this proposal. And I understand that. And I think it'd be wrong for this council to make a change the eve before we go into caretaker. So I think this is the right thing to do at this time. Wait till we can do some more consultation, wait till we can get some more plans so people understand the proposal in it, and wait till there is a new council on board, and then that can make a decision. But so I'll support this tonight because I think it's the right thing to do to delay it. But I'm not saying that any of these problems have been caused by anyone. I think it's just a timing issue. I think the staff have done their best. We would have been upset if there was a grant opportunity they didn't apply for. So I can understand how we've arrived here. So I think the right thing to do now is to slow it down, let the community have an opportunity to have input to it, and then make a decision in the clear light of day.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tom. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Peter, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? No? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mayor, please.
To say something, Councillor Craig, or not?
Oh.
No, okay. Councillor Peter, did you want to say something?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so look, you are, as a mover, you're providing a right of reply, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Look, I thank you for my other two fellow councillors. There were some concerns around consultation opportunities for the community, and we believe it's absolutely essential that the maximum number of people, especially traders that are affected most around the site, and those that use this area and haven't been using it during COVID, get the opportunity to understand what the full conversation is about and what the opportunities and losses are of the two options. So yeah, thank you to the other two councillors for providing that backup.
Okay, thank you. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. I'm just making sure I can see your hands, both your hands, aren't you, Councillor Wayne? Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. 5.3.
You can't
73.
vote twice, Wayne. It's not fair.
Item 5.3, 73 Devon Street, Eaglemont, proposed 4-dwelling development. There are 6 speakers or submitters to this item. We have written statements that will be now read out by Mark Giulio, our Director of Corporate Services, Kath Brackett, our Director of Community Programs, followed by a pre-recorded video. Thank you.
My name is Milenka Podnar. I'm the Principal Architect responsible for this submission. We undertook a pre-application meeting in October 2019. The outcome of this meeting was the determination, as supported by the Planning Department, that the site could accommodate 4 dwellings. This was predicated on the fact that the site is large and there are considerable lack of diversity in housing types in this precinct and, by extension, a local demand for this type of dwelling. Thereafter, we undertook an extensive process of collaboration with the Town Planning Department to amend our proposal in order to satisfy all of Council's concerns and to create a response that met and exceeded all of the local planning requirements, including Res Code and the broader planning scheme. We prepared at least 4 iterations of the design over a 6-month period and included all of the Planning Department's recommendations. It should be noted that the final submission improved on the conditions of the previously endorsed development for this site in terms of the site coverage, the number of proposed and retained trees, and general permeability. This improved response was particularly evident in the considerable site and rear setbacks of the proposal and the perimeter planting we included to alleviate any potential visual bulk and to ensure the amenity of the neighbouring properties. At all times, we were mindful of respecting the character of the precinct and sought to produce a design response of the highest architectural quality with a considerable number of new medium and large trees to be included. Ultimately, my client sought to create a project that served the local community in as much as it offered the opportunity for locals to downsize and remain in the precinct. Presently, there are scant opportunities for locals to acquire smaller, well-appointed dwellings in this neighbourhood. Our proposal caters for these people and more broadly addresses the need for diversity.
Thank you
It's
very
concerning
much,
that objections to this type of development are predicated on xenophobic tendencies designed to stratify rather than build community.
Thanks very much, Director. Okay. Kath Brackett, you're reading next.
Thank you, Mayor. This statement I'm reading is on behalf of Lindsay Mitchell. This block was cleared some 3 years ago. The developers now claim that this development will enhance the block and the surrounding area. The design of the proposal is of 4 2-storey units, which will be of the same design and look like a row of boxes. This is totally out of character with the surrounding home designs and will be a degradation of the immediate area. The row of houses will follow a line from north at front and south at rear of the block. In this design, all but the front unit will have the same lack of access to sunlight from the north, and it is not consistent with good design. There is to be some significant removal of trees remaining on the block. Council has recently been planting new sapling trees in the Eaglemont area, only to see developers destroy the mature trees existing on many of the housing blocks. These trees should be protected. I cannot imagine that this type of dense living would not have increased impact on current noise levels. This part of Devon Street is on a divided road and there is little access room on this single one-way roadway for egress or egress. Visitor parking will also be non-existent from the current plans. Building heights may be within council maximums, but this has not stopped others attempting to exceed these heights. Compliance must be assured if a permit is granted. I believe that 4 townhouses will constitute an overcrowding on this block, which is not in keeping with the surrounding area. Over the last 10 years, similar blocks in close proximity have been tastefully redeveloped with substantial homes that have improved and enhanced the area. Eaglemont is considered to be somewhat of a village, and it has that kind of ambience about it. Residents live here because it is the way that it is. This should not be destroyed by the ambitions of developers to profit from their own fortunes. Council needs to support the wishes of the current residents and ratepayers and deny the application for this development.
Thank you very much, Kath. Mark, Director Mark.
I'm reading out this written statement on behalf of Peter Crone, who's speaking against the recommendation. Councils need to carefully consider the issue of compliance with the Water Act 1989 before voting on this item. In this application for a planning permit dated January 30, 2020, the applicant was required to answer the following question. Does the proposal breach in any way an encumbrance on titles such as restrictive covenant, Section 173 agreement, or other obligations such as an easement or building envelope? And he answered no. The applicant signed this declaration that it was true and correct. In fact, the functioning Yarra Valley water sewer main is laid parallel to the land approximately 1 metre inside the entire 71 metre western length of the block where it joins the Devon Street main. The sewer main collects from residences in Albert Jones Court, Mount Street and Carlsberg Road. Section 184, Structures and Other Works of the Water Act 1989 states that a property owner requires consent from Yarra Valley Water before building a structure or placing soil, rock or any other matter over the land within 1 metre of the Yarra Valley water sewer or water infrastructure such as a sewer pipe, maintenance hole, sewage branch or other access point or within an easement. The proposed swimming pool was in breach of the Water Act, and the council has required that it be deleted from the plans, presumably for that reason. The sewer main is located 0.9 metres from the property boundary, which means that the elaborate 2 metre high corrugated iron fence over a stepped concrete block retaining wall proposed along this boundary is also in contravention of Section 148. Similarly, the 5 2-metre timber over concrete block retaining walls, which serve as an inter-tenancy dividing walls shown on the plans placed at right angles to the boundary fence, are not allowed. If council were to issue the permit in knowledge of this fact, it risks becoming complicit in a breach of the Water Act and liable for penalties itself. We urge councillors to send this matter back to the applicant to redesign the proposal so as to distance all constructed works from the sewer main.
Thanks very much, Director. And Director Kath, you're reading the next one.
Thank you. I'm reading this statement on behalf of Rowan Harrison. A permit with a high number of conditions is recommended, but many objectors believe that there are too many questions left unasked or unanswered for councillors to make an informed decision. Some suggested questions for councillors to inform the officers in order to have clarification before deciding are: 1. Major revisions have been requested by planning. Why weren't these revised plans provided to councillors? 2. Why are there no landscape plans provided to councillors? They were missing when the application was advertised, and now the officers and more than 50 objectors have had input. They still aren't available. 3. Section 148, Structure over Works of the Water Act 1989 requires 24-hour access to its sewer mains and has very clear guidelines on the nature and proximity of works prohibited in the sewer's location. The applicant submitted plans which included a swimming pool over the main. Is this the reason the pools were deleted? 4. The advertised plans in the agenda attachments are not the plans which Council are being asked to vote on. These plans also show a 2-metre colour-bond fence atop a steeped concrete block, retaining wall supported by concrete cushions parallel to and less than 1 metre distant to the main, and similar walls intersecting the sewer main at either end and in between the dwellings. These appear to be clear breaches of the Water Act. What is the planning's view of that? And 5, how can council decide upon this application when it has not yet been approached by Yarra Valley Water?
Kath, sorry to interrupt. We actually didn't hear you. Could you start at point 4 again?
The advertised plans in the agenda attachments are not the plans which Council are being asked to vote on. These plans also show a 2 metre colour-bond fence atop a steeped concrete block retaining wall supported by concrete cushions parallel to and less than 1 metre distant to the main, and similar walls intersecting the sewer main at either end and in between the dwellings. These appear to be clear breaches of the Water Act. What is planning's view of that? 5. How can Council decide upon this application when it has not been approved by Yarra Valley Water as required by the Water Act? There are clear requirements as to the amount of cut and cover allowed over sewer mains and resident connections, as well as the type of trees that can be planted and the distances from the main. The 24-hour access requirement under the Water Act means that any screening trees may have to be removed, as well as structural walls proposed between the units. I suggest Council defers any decision until approval is gained from Yarra Valley Water.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Kath. All right, and Director Mark, one more from you.
I'm reading out this written statement by Lee Anderson, who's speaking against the recommendation tonight. This application exhibits scant regard for planning requirements of the site. Officers have addressed many of the issues raised by residents, but there is still a long way to go. We always expect the dwelling to be constructed here. Indeed, the site owners moonscaped the original garden, including the removal of a pre-European river red gum, under the claim that they were building a family home. While pointedly singling out and denigrating established homes, the applicant has produced a jarringly out-of-character design with the area. He fails to mention that each of these homes sit on large blocks with significant private open spaces. The buildings are not forced to impose on neighbours by their meanness of design. We're living in one of the properties adjoining this site. Our rear fence is the western boundary. The constructions are east-west on a north-south block, and they plan to have 2 of the 4 dwellings backing onto our property. Our 100-year-old home is set back on this block, leaving our habitable rooms as close as 3.2 metres from the small open space of dwellings 2 and 3, with the following observations. 1, noise from the communal lounge room facing our bedroom will inadvertently be heard in our home. It is only 7.5 metres from our bedroom in a direct line. Their adjoining open space is squashed against the fence 3.2 metres from our bedroom. Applicants claim excavation will limit the direct views into our home. Unless semi-subterranean, it won't. Our home is effectively 2-storey on this boundary. 3, no landscape plan has been provided. Plans show a few planter boxes and say there will be planting at the front of the block. A facade is not a response to neighbourhood character. There is neither room nor light for rear gardens. 4, motors associated with 4 dwellings need to be placed in garages away from neighbours' fences.
Thanks very much, Director. We'll move on to the video. We have a pre-recorded video from Jenny Mulholland, which will be played in a moment.
Mayor Champion and councillors, 55 objections to a planning application is significant. These 55 objectors are 55 of our local residents who feel aggrieved with this proposed development, with their concerns based on neighbourhood character, amenity impacts, traffic, car parking impacts, and vegetation removal. These 55 residents have lived quite happily in this Eaglemont neighbourhood for a significant period of time. Some would have never objected to a planning application previously. Suddenly they have been thrust in a world of planning and planning appeal through no fault of their own. If the decision goes either way tonight, these residents will have to make a significant financial decision as to whether to continue to fight this case at VCAT to protect their amenity and families. So from one moment living quite happily in Eaglemont for years, they now each have to make a decision about dipping into their superannuation or taking out loans to fight this decision which has been forced upon them. A suggestion for you this evening, Council. Council should set up a fighting fund to assist residents in significant planning cases to provide support for residents at VCAT. I'm talking about serious support, a barrister at least. Council should set aside a line item each annual budget of 1.5 million for this purpose. Of course, there would need to be guidelines as to where the funding can be accessed and on what basis, but I would see this case being one that the criteria would meet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a section where the sound discontinued. I'm just going to read those words where the sound discontinued so that this message is complete. If the decision goes either way tonight, these residents will have to make significant decisions as to whether they continue to fight this case at VCAT to protect their amenity. So for one moment, living quite happily in Eaglemont for years, they now each have to make a decision about dipping into their superannuation or taking out a loan against their houses to fight a decision that has been forced onto them. A suggestion for council is that they set up a fighting fund to assist residents in significant planning cases in providing support to residents at VCAT. So I believe that was missing in that presentation. So there is a motion that differs from the papers.
Thank you, Mayor.
Question, Mayor, before we continue.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Craig, you wanted to say something first?
Yes, would such a fighting fund be legal to set up? I realise from issue to issue we have employed barristers and what have you, but we've never had a separate fund established. Would such a fund be legal?
That's a really good question. Would that be a Director Mark question or a Gina question? Director Mark.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. A bit difficult to answer that question, but I'd suggest that it wouldn't be illegal if we used, I guess, legal representation for issues at VCAT, which we quite often do. But I can't, with full honesty, say that it would be illegal, and perhaps if maybe Scott Walker, Director of City Development, might be able to expand on that use of legal representation at VCAT.
Director Scott.
Yeah, thanks to yourself, Mayor. Maybe just to explain that the council already has a legal allocation for VCAT matters, but that is to represent the council decision. So those funds are used to enable council to present to VCAT, and council has two roles at VCAT. One is to provide all the background information for VCAT and to explain the relevant rules and requirements, and the second is to then defend its decision, whatever that decision is. So that's what the current funds are used for. And I think what's being suggested here that a separate fund is set up, which residents can access to argue their cases at VCAT. And the interesting scenario in that is that residents are a different party at VCAT. They're not, whilst they may in some situations, but not in all, argue the same case or be arguing for the same outcome as council, it may not be the exact same outcome, or it might actually be diametrically opposed to council. And so that fund, if we set it up, would need to be accessed by residents to argue their own case, is what's actually being suggested here. Having such a fund and whether that's appropriate and lawful probably would need some further advice, but it's something that the council would need to very carefully consider whether that's an appropriate use of ratepayers' funds.
Should I carry on, Mayor, with the alternative recommendation?
Yeah, Craig's a bit stuck. That's all right. He'll come on. Yes, if you continue, please, Councillor Peter.
All right. The Alternative recommendation, recommendation A, that council, having complied with section 52, 58, 60, 61, 62 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, issue a notice of refusal to grant a planning permit in respect of planning permit application number P117-220 for the consideration of 4 dwellings and vegetation removal at 73 Devon Street, Egremont, subject to the following grounds. Strategic context. 1. The scale and density of the proposed development is contrary to the residential area framework of clause 2106(2) of the Banyule Planning Scheme. Sitting, design and neighbouring residential amenity. The sitting and design of the proposed development will have an overbearing physical impact upon the character of the area and will have an adverse impact upon local residents' amenity and is contrary to clause 15.01(1) urban design and 21.04(1) housing of Banyule Planning Scheme. Mass bulk scale neighbourhood character. Number 3, the mass bulk scale of the development is contrary to both existing and preferred neighbourhood character that would erode the spacious and well landscaped character. This is exacerbated through the proposed continuous built form and provision of swimming pools having an adverse visual impact and is contrary to clause 15.01(1) urban design, 21.04(1) housing, 22.02 residential neighbourhood character policy and standards B1. Neighbourhood character B2, residential policy objectives, and B31, design detail of clause 55 Res Code of the Banyule Planning Scheme. Open space and landscaping. 4. Inadequate space has been provided throughout the development to provide canopy tree planting and landscaping to adequately soften views of the development from the street and neighbouring land and enhance the landscape character of the area, as well as compensate for previous tree removal of the site. This is contrary to clause 21.04(1), housing 21.06, built environment, 22.02 residential neighbourhood character policy, 42.02 vegetation protection overlay, schedule 3, and standard B13, landscaping of clause 55 Res Code of the Banyule Planning Scheme. And 5, insufficient information has been provided to determine whether the sewerage easement located along the western boundary will prohibit the cut terracing, retaining walls, tree planting proposed in the location if consent cannot be provided by the relevant authority. This could compromise the ability to achieve an appropriate landscaping, private open space and internal amenity outcome contrary to clause 21.04(1) housing, 21.06 built environment, 22.02 residential neighbourhood character policy, 42.02 vegetation protection overlay, schedule 3, standard B13 and B28, landscaping and private open space of clause 55 Res Code of the Banyule Planning Scheme. Impacts on protected trees. The proposal may impact upon trees 1, 2, 3, contrary to clauses 42.02, vegetation protection overlay, schedule 3 of the planning scheme. And section part B as is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I'm assuming you're moving the item?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry?
Yes, please. I'll be moving the item as
well.
Great.
Okay. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Craig. All right. Councillor Peter, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd like to thank all submitters and particularly a couple that made significant contributions around the easement and the potential problems that may cause. Now, basically, this scheme is not suitable for this part of Egremont, where landscape gardens, the significant canopy trees are important, and the development and the deviation from the neighbourhood character is just too much. There are also unresolved and challenging conditions.
Peter, we have just lost your sound.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. We can hear you now, yeah.
There are unresolved and challenging conditions given the easement that may prevent the most important screening trees from going in, while officers' report went some way to ensuring the character is protected. I believe there is a number of conversations that I've had during this application process that that provide me with not enough confidence that this development is suitable on this location, and the 4 significant dwellings, not downsized type dwellings as mentioned in the earlier statement. These are 3, and 3 of them are 4-bedroom apartments, are just too large given the challenging constraints on this site. And look, there's a couple of other things that I think really stood out to me, and it's like the corrugated iron fencing. In this area, it's just not appropriate. I'm surprised that that was proposed. These aren't downsized houses, a 3-4 bedroom. Like, what are they downsizing from? I challenge that idea as well. And there's limited planting both where the easement is and also on the other side along the driveway side. And once again, there's little opportunity for this development of size that it is to be screened in a vegetation quality that would be upholding the character of that area. And for all those reasons, I've moved this evening that this recommendation for a refusal of permit. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor. And Councillor Craig, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Look, more than pleased to support this resolution, and I think Councillor Costello has done a wonderful job feeding up off the 51 objections, getting that feedback and what have you. I'm deeply concerned about a fund being established of 1.5 million to allow residents to fight VCAT on any issue. How would we deem that? All those sorts of things, particularly when we are in the middle of a pandemic and we're trying to use every bit of funds we can to assist people. I don't think this is the way we should assist them. To me, I think it would be breaching the Local Government Act, and I don't think governance would hate it.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom?
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat what's already been said, but it's interesting the person speaking in favour just talked about 4 dwellings, and maybe 4 dwellings are acceptable on this site, but not 4 dwellings of this size. And also take exception when they talk about they complied with all the requirements of the planning team, and therefore to try and get an approval, yet the planning team still put in a condition there to remove the pools. So obviously they didn't comply with all the requirements that the planning team, our planning team, put to them. But as you said, if you're downsizing, you don't want double stories, and you certainly don't want a pool. So I reject it. This gives a diversity of dwelling. These are 4 big houses on small blocks, and I think that's the underlying issue here. And they're trying to squeeze these very big houses on these very small blocks, and that's why you have all these conditions and all these other concerns. So I think that's right that this doesn't blend into this area. I have been down to this site several times. I remember there was a rather large house proposed there at one stage that also didn't fit in, and that was rejected by this council. And I think we should reject this as well because it's just not appropriate in that area. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tom. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Wayne, can I just check your hand is up to speak? Okay, all right, thank you very much. All right, Councillor Peter, would you like a right of reply? Okay, thank you very much. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried.
Mayor, I think you can put the arm up. Is not drowning, just waving.
That's good. Item 5.4, 1 Basie Street, Ivanhoe East. Amendment to liquor licence hours at Ivanhoe Public Golf Course. P110 2020. There are 2 submitters or speakers to this item. We've got written statements now being read out by Director Jeff Glynn and Director Kath Brackett. Thank you.
The Mayor, the first speaker is Ian Reynolds, and he's speaking against the item. We object to the amendment to the liquor licence, item 5.141, as we believe this will be detrimental to the lives of nearby residents, including ourselves. We feel there will be a markedly increased noise levels at events where alcohol is served over an increased period of time, there being no buffers between the venue and nearby residences. We see significant problems with car parking and fear that vehicles will need to park in nearby streets, which are particularly narrow, thus increasing the likelihood of accidents, as some residents and visitors may be required to park on the street. And 3, we came to live in this area for its peace and quiet and safety, but fear its wonderful ambience will be very much impacted upon if the proposed amendment were to be approved.
Thank you.
And this statement's I'm reading on behalf of Bruce Dickey. In 1992-3, it was proposed that the golf course should have a liquor licence. A large number of residents opposed it. In between the granting of the current licence, the leaseholder held a number of wedding receptions, which resulted in loud amplified music and questionable behaviour on the golf course at night. The process in the granting of the liquor licence went from council to VCAT to a liquor licensing commission. Negotiations at the Liquor Commission resulted in the current licence. No amplified music was a crucial point for the residents, and this was recognised by the Liquor Commission. There is absolutely no reason why 30 years later this needs to change. The primary use of this land is as a golf course and should remain so. The liquor licence should be as a refreshment and not for parties. There has been no information from a leaseholder as to why they think it is necessary to have amplified music. The valley in front of the golf club rooms is a natural amphitheatre, and any loud sounds resonate into the local area. The notion of policing what are the correct decibels allowable fills us with horror. We do not want to become late evening police officers, nor as ratepayers should we have to. Licensed late night venues in the area are struggling at the moment, and we believe that there are plenty of venues available. Other licensed venues in municipality in built-up areas have substantially more restrictions than what are proposed here. Additional traffic in the evening is also of a concern.
Thank you very much. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Peter Castaldo, can I please have a seconder? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Peter, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item? Okay, you'll just take yourself off mute there, councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to ask a question of the relevant officer. There was a question in there or a proposal that is there some clarification about, is there a change to amplified music in this planning application?
Okay, could I have the relevant director answer that, please?
That's myself, Mayor.
Okay, great, thanks. Oh, you're up there on the screen.
So happy to answer the question. One of the early proposals or thoughts for the amendment did include some forms of live entertainment or music. The proposal as currently put before council tonight is substantially refined, and any proposal for live music or amplified music has been taken away from the proposal. So the conditions that are proposed this evening would include no live entertainment in the premises, and also background music, so entertainment only in the form of pre-taped background music, and so highly amplified music must not be played. So really no change to the current circumstances.
Thanks very much, Director. Okay, Councillor Peter, did you want to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you, Officer Scott Walker. When I first saw this and spoke to some of the residents, I was quite concerned about what this may be presenting to our community. And I had a chat with a couple of residents and also the applicant. I went down and had a look at the site. The first recommendation had some significant deviation from the operating hours and some change of usage. But over the journey, we've had a conversation, a meeting with concerned residents, the applicant and some of our officers. And as a consequence, throughout this process and the further recommendations of officers in their recommendation this evening, I consider it quite limited changes to the existing conditions. There is no no change to Monday and Tuesday, and that continues to be 9 o'clock. No change Wednesday and Thursday, and that's till 11 still. Friday and Saturday, an increase of 30 minutes up to 11:30, and a Sunday increase of 1 hour till 10 o'clock. So not significant time increases. And the other things I wanted to take into consideration, that there's been no history of non-compliance and bad behaviours. Now, I'm sure there may have been a couple of conversations potentially between residents, but council doesn't have these records that there has been problems with the behaviour of the organisation running the venue. There's no increased licensed area, so that remains the same. There's no increase in patron numbers. And the removal of live music request and no loud amplification permitted. All these go a long way to recognise some of the concerns of the residents, and I also think it shows some goodwill of the applicant to amend the request quite considerably to accommodate the concerns of residents. Overall, I recognise the intention of this application is to increase the usage of the golf club for functions. Looking at the variation between the existing and the new, it's considered very small. I would consider that. And it does not change the way the building will be used due to those limited variations. It is unlikely to change the demand significantly as well. On these grounds, I am in agreement with the final restrictions and recommendations of this report and feel comfortable to accept what is before us this evening. And I think this is a good in-between approach. Now, I think some of the residents were quite, that they didn't want any change, but I think this is a fair outcome and has showed goodwill between both parties, I think, to accept and move forward with this.
Thanks very much, Councillor. That's great. Thank you. And Councillor Rick, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 6.1, Annual Community Engagement Policy. There are 4 speakers to the item. We have a pre-recorded video, which will be played now, followed by written statements read out by Director Scott Walker and Director Jess Lee.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jovis from Heidelberg. I'm speaking against the proposed Annual Community Engagement Policy 2020, as I believe that it has left out an important component of community engagement. That is the access for residents and ratepayers to actually engage and speak at council meetings. This is a key component of how we, the community, get to speak with our councillors on any given issue that we might seek to raise with all councillors and key council officers all at once. As recommended by the Victorian Auditor General's Office, we need to ensure that community engagement is encouraged and promoted at council meetings. I fully understand that the conduct of council meetings is at the council's discretion, as per the Local Government Act. Yet limiting access to the community forum and delaying it till the end of the meeting is actually contrary to the principles of transparency and accessible public engagement. In July 2017, the Council saw fit to limit the number of questions and the community's opportunity to speak to Council by moving the public forum to the end of the meeting. This has been an effective administrative muzzle to community dialogue and engagement transactions as outlined in Section 1.4 of this policy. A review of Council meetings A review of council minutes has shown that so far this year, out of the 70 odd comments or questions that have been posed to council, not one of these has originated from the east side of the municipality, including Beale, Hordern and Sherborne. Prior to council changing its policy on the public forum, there was a much greater range and volume of participation. However, it's clear that residents are not responsive to these changes, which clearly should not have been made without community consultation. I would recommend that the community engagement policy include engagement, transparency and accessibility of speaking at council meetings, with the community forum brought to the start of the meeting. Thank you.
The next speaker is Alida McKern, so I'll be reading out the comments on behalf of Alida McKern. I'm Alida McKern. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the item. Good governance is about the processes for making and implementing decisions in a way that is equitable, inclusive and participatory. This means bringing the community with you, actively empowering their voice and listening to all members of the community, including those who are marginalised or underrepresented. This is a key direction of the Banyule Council Plan. 4.1, engage meaningfully with our community and encourage participation in issues and opportunities. To achieve this, a comprehensive action plan is needed to engage all of our community. The draft policy lacks sufficient implementation detail. Detailed and comprehensive techniques for reaching the community in a meaningful, consistent and regular manner is not addressed adequately in this policy. Relying on social media, temporary advertising, one-off mail-outs, one-off meetings and infrequent Banyule banner does not provide for meaningful, inclusive and regular participatory consultation. The demise of the local press has detrimentally affected council's connections with its community. Communication received from council, while interesting, is not an independent and accountable source. Social media is an informative platform, but relies on residents tuning in and having access. The strategy should provide a detailed and inclusive action plan for consulting with our community and should provide for more genuine, ongoing community decision-making, especially in relation to policies like Council's Community Climate Action Plan. Zero emissions for Banyule by 2040 will require Council to engage all of the community for this target to become a reality. More information is required as to the how and when of community engagement lacking in this draft. I recommend this policy not be adopted in its current form.
The next speaker is Robin Roberts, and she's speaking against the recommendation. I am against the proposal and request that further consideration be given to this policy by a more complete community consultation, including community working groups and public Q&A sessions over the first year of the newly elected council in October this year. The topic is timely and very important for a new council to be actively consider with supported input from the community. I understand this item may be a tick the box exercise and needs to be completed in this council year. If that is the case, I request that the council still proceed with a process for a new council to complete that addresses issues raised by the community at the start of a process, identifying gaps where community consultation or council processes are perceived as poor or not up to those standards expected by the community. The process as above should take at least a year and report back on what changes can be made to improve this perception. A steering committee of elected residents and council officers should partly determine this process. If that is not considered appropriate by this council, then a new council should decide on the format of the consultation in the first weeks of 2021.
The next speaker is Brian Grace. My name is Brian Grace. I am Vice President of Good Governance Banyule. I would firstly like to thank the Council for allowing my view to be heard. The issue that most concerns my fellow residents is that it relies on multiple media, such as the website and Facebook. No real discussion has been made about face-to-face or public forums, not to mention ward meetings. Bring back the public forum to council meetings if you want real meaning to public participation. All the other means are just one way, no real conversations. The community demands change. This is the perfect way. Don't be afraid to talk to us in a very real way. We don't bite, I promise. Bring back the public forum.
Thank you all very much. Before we go ahead to move the motion, I have a question for the appropriate director. I believe it's Kath Brackett. My understanding is that we are voting on a community engagement policy that doesn't necessarily specify anything relating to, say, a council meeting or how a council meeting is run. But can I ask Kath Brackett to maybe just explain a little bit more about what's actually being voted on here with the Banyula Community Engagement Policy?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So the draft policy in front of councillors tonight is council's response to the requirements under the Local Government Act to have a community engagement policy. And it's a high-level set of principles and a framework for how council would go about community engagement. The actual policy itself identifies a framework for the ways that you go about engagement and the key steps. And some of the issues that have been raised would be addressed in the implementation of the policy. So, for example, depending what stakeholders you're engaging with, you would design a community engagement that meets their needs, that, you know, may or may not be online, might be face-to-face, might be open public forums and questions and answers. The principle being that engagement should be addressing the needs of the community, should be deep, should be meaningful, should be transparent, and council should give feedback in that engagement process. The other issue that's been raised, which you've touched on, Mayor, is about meeting procedures and governance procedures. Those things are considered in a separate policy, which is the governance rules or the meeting rules that council considered a couple of meetings ago. So they're related but two separate things.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for clarifying. That's really helpful. Thank you. So can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Rick Garotti, can I please have a seconder? Councillor Tom Milliken. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll speak very briefly and happy to move this in the context of the context that Kath Brackett provided, that this is a policy framework with a lot of detail to go through in terms of the implementation, because I must acknowledge that I think all four of the speakers raised very valid points. They weren't, I suppose, a bit unfortunately for me, it was just here tonight that it's the first time that I've heard that feedback. Had it been received a little bit earlier, I may have been able to liaise with colleagues around a deferral of the item or looking at some other revisions. But I suppose in the context that this is a policy framework and that we can do work around the detailed implementation, I'm comfortable to move forward. But what I would certainly like to reassure the community is that, in a future council, if I'm on it, that the sentiments raised I share wholeheartedly. And I think that particularly as we move out of the COVID-19 environment, I think as a council we do look to need to look at every opportunity to engage. And as one of the speakers said, I don't think we should ever be afraid of that engagement. I think we should welcome it. We live in a democracy. We welcome multiple voices. I mean, that's what makes living in Victoria, living in Banyule great. And I think that we should foster that. And I would certainly look forward to doing that in the future. So I recommend this, but within the context provided by the officer. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rick. Councillor Tom, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, I'd also like to echo those thoughts. It is in this context that we're doing this, and we need to do it in this term of council. So, but it is a framework, and I must admit, I really miss the open questions we used to have at council. I know there's been several changes to the way this has been done. I still don't think we've got it right perfectly. I remember the first time I spoke at a council meeting, I was incredibly nervous. I remember Rosie Bray gave me a few words of encouragement, and I messed it up something terrible. The second time I was a lot better. So that was a long time ago. But yeah, it's incredibly important. And as Councillor Garotti said, that as councillors, we don't know everything. We benefit greatly from input from other people who have more expertise and more knowledge in certain areas. And the more we can take on, the more opinions we can receive, the better decisions we make. So we should encourage that, and I think we do. COVID's really made it more difficult, and as one of the speakers said, the loss of the local paper, I think, has been detrimental to our democracy and in some of the processes we have. So I think that's a great pity. How we replace that, I'm not quite sure, but I will support this tonight. I don't think we've got it right yet. I think the new council needs to look at this again under the framework that we're adopting tonight, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. And once we get out of COVID, maybe we rethink it again to try and maximise the input we can get from our residents, because I greatly appreciate it. I know it's not always pleasant, or not pleasant, but can be quite critical of councils, but that's our role. We need to make good decisions, and if we make good decisions, then we can stand by them. So any input we get from residents, I think, helps. So I'll support this tonight.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Craig.
Thank you. I agree with what both councillors have said and what the director has said. Under her guidance and what have you, I'm more than pleased to support it. I also agree with Councillor Milliken. We haven't got it right yet. I don't know if there is a right, to be honest. I have also witnessed, I think, inappropriate actions from the gallery. When they misquote facts at council and deride our officers, I find that very offensive. Officers don't have the right to defend themselves in council. We as elected officials do. We can respond, but the council officers don't. We've got to get this mix right. We've got to protect those who can't defend themselves as well.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
Mayor, I think Councillor Castaldo just wanted to say something, and I won't have a right of reply.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Peter?
Yeah, look, I think I agree with my fellow councillors. There were good contributions in this discussion, but I think they need to be had at another time. I know ward meetings was mentioned there. That's one of my favourites. I had a few of those, and Councillor Langdon attended, and there was going to be a few more, but COVID came in. And look, early on when I was here, we had quite a different scenario in council meetings. There's many ways we can do consultation, and I welcome those opportunities to trial new things after this election period. And I think that conversation is always going to continue, and I welcome contributions on that in the future when it's more relevant to the item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.1, council meeting dates after the election, changes required. There are no submitters to this item. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Craig Langdon. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Tom Milliken. Councillor Craig, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Rick? No, okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.2, award of contract number 1063-2020, construction of Lower Plenty Pavilion. There are no submitters. Can I please have a councillor move the motion? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale, can I please have a seconder? I'll second that one. Councillor Mark, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would. Well, I'd like to leave the space, I believe, for yourself, being the Hordern Ward Council and this being in your ward. You can go right ahead as the seconder.
Thank you very much. I won't take long. This has been essentially 4 years coming. I remember the first conversation with the president of the club coming to me, certainly in the first few weeks of the term after being elected, and having a conversation around this, improving the Lower Plenty, where the Lower Plenty players play the Oval. And we had a conversation around what they'd like to do and what they'd like to see. And I've just said yes. We put you in touch with the appropriate officers. Are you ready to go on a journey? And this has taken the 4 years to be partway there. So we're partway there. So I'm very excited to be able to see this go ahead in the next financial year. And I'm looking forward to being able to see it under construction and then use it afterwards and go and visit it, certainly. So thank you very much to all the officers who've made this happen for the club. It's very special. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Thom.
I'll just say a good couple of words. Lower Plenty Football Club are a very good family-oriented community club that has done an enormous amount in their community, supported each other in some really tough times, really back each other. They were the first to have an all-ability side in the league. They've done some great work for many years, the Lower Plenty Football Club, and I'm very pleased to see this pavilion. Nothing really wrong with the old pavilion, except you couldn't sit in it and watch the games. You're sort of in the wrong spot. But no, they're very well run, very engaging, very community-minded club, and I'm very happy to see this go through tonight.
Thanks, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, Councillor Wayne, followed by Councillor Craig.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I say, well, congratulations to yourself, because it's yourself that's been badgering the rest of us to get the money to be able to build this pavilion. And can I just say that one of the disadvantages of having individual wards, and we're going to go from 7 to 9, is that often that when we're buying for funds, we forget that sometimes there's only one bucket of money, and you've got 7 people trying to put their hands in to get that bucket of money, to be spending it in their own wards, to be showing their residents that they are truly representing them in trying to provide the services. But it's interesting how from the days of not having a pavilion, and when I started, often the clubs the pavilion was a tin shed. There was no such thing as a change room, or maybe a towel was held up by umpires got changed, and there were certainly no facilities for club members to go back and enjoy after the game. But it's interesting how the cost of just doing something simple like the provision of a pavilion is $1 million now. It's just, for some unknown reason, when it comes to councils, and not only Banyule but all councils spending money, the cost of trying to build something, seems to double, or certainly is much dearer than what it would be for the private sector. Like, you could get a fairly decent home for $1 million these days, and you're talking about, what's the contract, $850,000 to build a pavilion. And we forget often that Banyule, which is the old former Heidelberg in parts, is an ageing municipality with ageing infrastructure, and this is one of many pavilions that we have to provide throughout the municipality. So over the next number of years, it's very challenging for the new council, the 9 of us, or 9 councillors that will be there, including yourself, I hope, Mayor, to continue to provide infrastructure, when you're looking at the cost of nearly $1 million just to be able to do anything. So well done to yourself for getting the money, and certainly persistence pays off, and we might now get a bit of peace and quiet without you badgering the rest of us to get some money to get it done. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Craig.
Basically on the same thing, very proud of this council and the fact we have a lot of clubs, a lot of pavilions that need upgrading. We have gone through and worked out the schedule of work to be done, and the pavilion in Lower Plenty was not last but not least. It was certainly considered in the process, and it takes time to get them all done. Like I have one in my old ward will be that West Ivanhoe. I'd like to see a pavilion there upgraded, but I told them 3 years ago it won't be this term because there's so much to be done. We got them lights and we've got them the netball courts, but a lot of clubs will wait as long as they know they're in a list to be considered, and if we do it sensibly and have the funds to do it, I think all those sporting clubs out there are very happy with this council for the way we approached it over the last 8 years.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? This might sound odd, but Councillor Mark, would you like a right of reply? Okay. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.3, award of contract number PA 2206 0221 for supply of fleet service and consumables. There are no submitters to this item. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Tom Melican, can I please have a seconder? I'll second that then. Councillor Tom, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
No, I'd just like to thank the officers for doing the work to get the best possible deal for this, and also I noticed that there were some local suppliers in as part of this as well. So I think it's all around a very good contract, and I thank the officers for their efforts to secure not only the best possible deal, but also to ensure that there were some local providers included as well. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, councillor. I won't speak to the item. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, sorry, I'll now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.4, certification of the financial statements and performance statement for the year ended 30th of June 2020. There are no submitters to the item. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Councillor Rick Garotti, seconder Councillor Craig Langdon. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to speak briefly to the item. Look, I won't labour for too long on the financials. They're very solid, and the council ends the year and indeed this term in a very strong financial position. But I just think in the context of COVID-19 and the struggles that so many households and individuals and other businesses and other agencies are experiencing, I'm not looking to gloat. But I think what it does show is that the council is in a very strong financial position. And so we hand this over to a new council, and a new council may come with a whole range of new ideas and initiatives in the form of looking at the rate side of things, looking at greater support, looking at activating communities, looking at economic development and business support. And what I can honestly say is that we're handing the council over in a financial position to enable a new council to hit the ground running and to do what the electorate gives them a mandate to do in terms of servicing the community. And as the chair of the finance portfolio for the last 4 years, that does give me some element of pride in being able to say that here tonight and to be able to hand over the council in the financial position that it is. I will just point out for the record that these financial statements have gone through to our Audit and Risk Committee. We closely scrutinised and reviewed those accounts on Friday. We received testimonials from the Chief Executive Officer, the directors and all the managers around their attestations on fraud, integrity and control. We received a briefing from the Victorian Auditor General's Office around the integrity of the accounts. And we also received a very detailed briefing from Tanya and her team on a variance analysis of the balance sheet and the P&L. So bringing all of that together, the Audit and Risk Committee is recommending that these accounts be adopted by the Council. And on that basis, as a member of that committee, I too put forward these accounts for adoption by the Council. And finally, I'd just like to conclude by saying a thank you to Director Mark Gillio. I've really enjoyed working with Mark, you know, in my role as the portfolio councillor. And I think that, yeah, we've done some great things together as officers and councillors. I think it's been a really good working relationship, and just wanted to say that opportunity, take the opportunity to say thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rick. Councillor Craig, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, I'd also just like to say thank you to all those involved, and I'll say it, but thank you, Councillor Garotti, for your great work in what you've done in those 4 years. I don't think we'd be in the position we're in today without your constant checking what our officers are putting forward to us and your experience in the field. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Tom.
Yeah, I also attended the meeting the other day, and I think what it did highlight to me was the impact that COVID has had on council's finances, but because of our strong balance position, then we were able to absorb those, but there will be ongoing issues and ongoing consequences. So this council has to be extremely vigilant in the way we spend money and the services provided, but it also highlighted how we have maintained our services and we have maintained our capital budget, and we've continued to build the infrastructure the community needs, but by doing that, we've provided the local jobs as well. So we need to continue that. So it's a fine balancing act in between spending the money to make sure that we do keep improving our facilities, providing jobs, but there are a lot of people out there that have been very adversely impacted by this, and that will continue. So it's going to be a difficult few years for our community, but a difficult few years for council as well. But I think we're in good position to start that journey, but it's not going to be an easy trip, and there's going to be a few potholes in the road. But I'd also like to thank Councillor Garotti as well, because he has a fantastic job on this, and his insight and knowledge of these financial issues and risk is outstanding, and it makes the job of us other councillors quite easy when we have someone that can do that work. But I'd also like to thank the Director as well, because he runs a very tight ship, and the Auditor General did acknowledge that as well. So it was a very good meeting, but we are in for some challenging times.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? All right, thank you. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.5, amendment to Banyul's COVID-19 economic support package. There are two submitters for this item. Both are pre-recorded videos, so they will play now.
Hello, my name is Katie George and I'm from Bullay Street, Yallambee. The impending cut of the JobKeeper and JobSeeker programs will increase pressure on businesses and residents in Banyul. Council should be constructing more flexible eligibility criteria for people and businesses in Banyul to access its COVID-19 assistance. Some who are not recipients of JobKeeper or JobSeeker, as they fail to qualify for these payments, and while they may not have experienced a 30% loss of income, they have experienced increased costs of living due to price gouges of essential items, additional medical expenses, increases in utility bills because we're home all the time, and paying the fees for delivery of essentials. Council should encourage people to explain how they have been impacted to understand whether the community is getting the targeted assistance that it needs, and take this information into consideration in the design of these measures to ensure that it is getting the initiative right. I have spoken with neighbours who are struggling but have not applied for any assistance as they did not see themselves as eligible. So I encourage them to make an application for their case to be at least assessed. I do hope that the information in these applications is reviewed to assist Council to understand some of the unique circumstances that people are facing, so that Council can deliver the support that is needed. Thank you.
Rather than taking the lead. This is disappointing because compared to the aforementioned Kevin Hill Ivanhoe, I speak on behalf of Banyule Ratepayers Action Group Incorporated. The proposed amendments are sensible, well targeted, but 83 days late, given that the initial funding support components to which these amendments relate expired on the 30th of June. Bragg notes that the Banyule Council is following Commonwealth and state government initiatives rather than taking the lead. This is disappointing because compared to the aforementioned governments, this council should be much closer to understanding the financial plight of its constituents as it evolves and should therefore be more agile in its response. This council appears to be timid, lacking confidence in its judgment to make correct, quick decisions that demonstrate strong leadership. Bragg notes that the $450,000 cost of extending the timeframe of the various funding components will be funded from the already budgeted $10.5 million nominated for the COVID-19 relief, indicating either council's prodigious crystal ball skills when it established the budget or its loudly proclaimed support package was a guesstimate. No doubt council was hoping that it would not have to expend the $10.5 million if the Andrews State Labor government quarantine debacle and ensuing coronavirus infection could be quickly brought under control and Victorians were released from lockdown to return to their jobs and businesses. Unfortunately, council's punt has failed. The question now is, does council have sufficient balance sheet flexibility to add another $450,000 to its overall support package to pay for the other components it already budgeted to fund? If pressed, could council stump up another $5 to $10 million to add to its COVID-19 support package? Bragg notes that the council has budgeted for an $8.6 million deficit and has run down its reserves to concerning levels. Ratepayers seek honest answers to these proper questions. A new council will have to deal with the legacy of this council's pre-election decision. Finally, I wish to thank councillors and staff for their contribution to the community over the 4-year life of this council. Post-election, I look forward to working with the new council. Stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a motion that differs from the papers.
I'm happy to read that out, Mayor.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So that council 1 as is, 2 as is, 3 as is, 4 as is, a new point 5 that council offer the Employee Assistance Program, EAP, to appropriate community groups and associations, including neighbourhood houses in Banyule for the remainder of the 2020-21 financial year. New point 6 as is, 7 as is, and 8 as is. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Rick. So I'm going with that. You're moving that item. Could I please have a seconder for that item? Thank you very much, Councillor Peter. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to speak to it. Look, the COVID-19 support package appears to be progressing quite well based on the feedback that we've been receiving individually as councillors from the community, but also on survey results and statistics and take-up rate from the council officers. I suppose one thing that we've observed was that there was a little bit of confusion in the community around residents as opposed to businesses on the JobKeeper and whether or not they were eligible. I think this really clarifies it now. So if you're a resident on JobKeeper, you get $250 off your rates on application. And obviously the $500 for those on JobKeeper or JobSeeker remains. And I suppose the other observation that just came through a month or so of implementation of the policy was whether or not that $100 was enough of a support for those that are on the JobKeeper or experiencing some other form of hardship. And so the officers have come to the council with a recommendation to increase that to $250, and that seems reasonable. In the context of our average rate per household of $2,000 per annum, Someone on the job seeker now will be getting in the order of 25% off their rates, and someone on the job keeper or other hardship will be getting in the order of 12.5% to 13% off their rates. So that's quite a good level of financial support, but we're not for one moment saying that that's the be all and end all, and that's going to make things easier for residents. We know that many in our community are doing very difficult, but we hope that this support mechanism, together with the fact that we're enabling a complete deferral of any payment until after the end of the financial year, is enough of a support to get people through while times are tough. And the other thing that I'll call out was just the amendment around the employee assistance program. Just through some consultation that we've done, it came back through the neighbourhood houses in particular that their employees would really value and benefit from having access to that program at the moment. So this is low cost for the council to offer that extension of the program, but I think will be really high value for the community groups that benefit. But in short, we've tightened and tinkered with the program. No doubt a new council will review and revisit it, but we think for the moment this is a really solid and sound package, and we hope that it's providing support to individuals and businesses who need it most at the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rick. Councillor Peter, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, please, Mayor. Thank you. As Councillor Rick Garotti mentioned, I think he's covered much of it, but I just wanted to stress the importance that we continue to assess the COVID response and extend support and target it to in the most appropriate way when the situation deteriorates, as it has during this stage 4 shutdown and this second wave. We don't know what to expect. We've never been here for over 100 years. So as a council, we can't move as quickly as one might like, but I would suggest that we've moved thoughtfully and considered manner, and firstly with deferrals, then waivers. Now, we've had applications that we hadn't considered, and we've broadened and changed the criteria on which we can provide support. And as our first speaker suggested, there may be other categories of people that we don't know. So I would definitely welcome people to put forward their story, and we can reconsider that the criteria and approach we're taking, and possibly include a broader set in the community and take that into consideration. And we are giving considerable waivers, as Councillor Garotti suggested. 25 and 12.5% is good for the average ratepayer. So from the shift from 100 to 250 in the lower category, I think is a very important move we've also done. And so I'd like to thank officers, and also my sympathy goes out to all those in the community that are doing it tough. If you're another category, please send your emails through and talk to our officers, and we can reassess that at the next moment we get the opportunity to consider the most appropriate response from our council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply? Okay, so
I think there are a few councillors
I'm just
who'd
going
like
to
to
go
speak.
from left to right. So, Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like the opportunity just to make a couple of comments. Mayor, just I think from with regards to the assessments, I mean, we as councillors were faced with a bit of information coming to us that if we made the assessments too technical, where we would need officers to be allocating too much time to make assessments, that would cost the community money, which we shouldn't be spending out of our rate. So we tried to make the assessments as easy as possible. You know, if one is on JobKeeper or one is on JobSeeker, or there is other proof that can be brought forward that there's been a decrease in income, pretty much it was a given. We were faced with information that will take many, many hours and resources of officers if we made it more technical than that. So that's why it has been that way, Mayor. I just want to make that clear to the community. you know, also, Mayor, I've been comparing our COVID relief program to other councils, and look, I think ours is fairer and more focused than other councils. And I mean, we're comparing ourselves to Metropolitan Melbourne here. We, you know, the councils in Metro Melbourne have had a difficult time navigating where funds need to go, what relief needs to be made. Now, Mayor, we're sitting on, and I stand to be corrected, but you know, Metropolitan Melbourne has been locked down the longest of anywhere in the world, this COVID-19 period, anywhere in the world. I stand to be corrected. If anyone has information of any areas that have been locked down for longer than Melbourne metropolitan area, let me know. But look, that's a lot to deal with for a community and for a council. So look, I think we're just improving it a little bit now. We've got the balance right, and it hasn't ended now. We see light at the end of the tunnel. Numbers are going down, but still we're not out of the tunnel yet. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mark. Councillor Tom.
Yeah, Councillor Mark basically said what I was going to say, but I'll just add that this is a targeted response, and I think that's the key word here. And there are many out there struggling financially, but there are some that are actually doing quite well. And I spoke to a couple of tradie friends over the weekend who said that they can't keep up with the workflow and the amount of jobs they've got doing, and they're knocking work back because they simply can't do it. So it's impacting some people severely, and others they're flat out. So it's difficult to put a blanket across there, and exactly what Councillor Di Pasquale said, that we don't want to spend more money assessing people's claims to some sort of dispensation, and satisfying that inquiry costs more than the amount of funds that they're actually requesting. So that's why we made the decision to take on JobSeeker and JobKeeper, because someone else has already made that assessment. They've already qualified for those programs. So under that, if they qualify for those programs, they qualify for the rebate from this council. And the other thing is, we set the original support package prior to the second lockdown, and the second lockdown, you have to say, is being devastating for some people. The impact, financial impact. Most people could get through the first wave. It was short. There was a bit of a novelty to it. Financially, most people could afford it, but the second lockdown hasn't been like that at all. It has really devastated people financially and mentally and physically, and that's why this support's so incredibly important. But as Councillor Di Pasquale said, I think this is the best support package of any council in Melbourne. There's none that even come close. And I'm very proud of that. And I think as a council, we've stuck to this. We've adjusted it. We may need to adjust it again if we're lucky enough to be re-elected. But I think it's an incredibly important package that's done an enormous amount, and I'm happy to support it tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Tom. Councillor Wayne, did you have your hand up as well?
We can hear you, Matt.
Wayne, just put your mic down near your mouth.
That's what you call talking through your head. Just a question, please, probably to our finance officer. Just in resolution of 1, I'm just trying to understand what we're trying to achieve or what we're trying to offer. 1 talks about deferring interest penalties that would be imposed in accordance with the section until the 31st of December. So I'm assuming, the preamble is, I'm assuming that if someone is struggling, they would be asking for consideration of receiving the $250. Therefore, it would be logical to think that they would also be struggling to pay the first instalment, which normally would accrue penalty. But if they qualify and get the $250, what we're only saying is we'll defer the interest on that payment until December rather than waive the interest on that payment. Is that the way I'm reading it? So we give in one hand, take back in the other?
Director Mark?
Director Mark, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. That particular provision in the relief package was done in the first phase of our support for the community. It's quite separate to the waiver or the deferral. So, for example, if you didn't apply for a waiver or deferral and you were late on your payment, say your first instalment, for example, then we wouldn't charge you interest until the end of the calendar year. So quite separate to the normal provision of the rates waiver of $500 if you're on JobKeeper, JobSeeker, or the $250 for other financial hardship, or separate to if you had a deferral, which we don't charge any interest if you're deferring for the full 12 months. It's another provision. So if you are not applying for any of the relief, we'll still won't charge you interest until the end of the calendar year.
But the question is, isn't it logical to assume that if someone is applying for some rate relief because of hardship for the $250, it would be logical to think that they wouldn't be able to make the payments of their rates, and therefore we would be deferring the interest on that rate, but we're only deferring it till December, where we're asking for the money then to be paid back.
Yeah.
So they could receive the, sorry, Mark, they could receive the $250, but still not be in a position to pay the rate, but still accruing interest. And the question was, we seem to be giving on one hand, but taking back on the other. Whereas really, if that person qualified for both, we almost should be waiving the interest rather than just deferring it to a point, whether it be December or whatever.
Yeah, well, we would. You could apply for a deferral and a waiver, for example, in that case. But this is in the case where a resident or a local business hasn't applied for any of those deferrals or waivers. We'll assess any late payments that haven't been received up until the end of the year, and then we won't charge any interest over that particular period. So, for example, if you're a resident and you didn't apply for the job seeker or waiver or a deferral, and you were late on one of those payments, we still wouldn't charge you interest to the end of the year. So it's slightly different, but it's for those who don't apply for any of that relief, essentially.
What I'm confused, or what I'm asking is, we're only deferring the payment till the end of the year, December, but would then be still asking for that money to be paid with the interest. So they're still liable for the interest. It's just that they don't have to pay it until the end of the year.
Yeah, if for example you don't, we won't charge interest up until the end of the year. If beyond the end of the year you still don't make a payment on your instalments, then we'll be looking at charging you interest as well.
So is there an opportunity for a person who may, for what a whole range of reasons, and it could be just simply pride, that might not apply for the $250, but struggling to pay their payment in the first instance, their instalment in the first instance, is there an opportunity for us to waive that interest rather than just defer it under this resolution?
Yeah, there's always an opportunity through you, Mayor, to waive interest from, and that's always been an option available to council. And we do that on a regular basis, so there's no change to that. But just in terms of a process, we won't be charging interest on any of the late instalments up until the end of the year, irrespective of whether they've had a waiver or a deferral.
All right, just finally, but come the end of the year, they will still get the interest rate or interest charge, which is dated back to when the payment was due, which is the 30th of September, or whenever it is.
Well, we'll charge it from the 1st of January next year, so we won't be charging any interest for the rest of the calendar year or the first half of the financial year.
All right.
And so the original resolution was around up until September. We're just extending that to December now. Hopefully that makes sense.
As long as it's clear with everyone else, it just, to me, it just seemed to be we're giving on one hand and taking back on the other for the person who may be in that financial hardship category. Because you'd think if they're in the financial hardship category where they're applying for the 250, it would seem logical to think that they also wouldn't be in a They're frozen.
Yeah, we've just lost you. You're back on now, Wayne.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit of freezing.
Nicole Wayne.
And the faces sometimes are caught. It's like, you know, when Mum used to say, don't pull them faces in case the wind changed. The wind has changed and they're scary, some of them.
Perhaps through you, Mayor, I could say that we'll look at all scenarios anyway and look at the individual details of anyone who's applying for a waiver or deferral
Thank you, Mayor.
and any hardship.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
That's all right. You're welcome, Councillor. Did anyone else want to speak to the item? Councillor Craig, away you go.
Very briefly, businesses. I think they will be affected by a long tail to this pandemic. I don't think they'll recover as soon as people get out and about again. Listen to the economists. I think it might be now 12, 18 months after this that we still need to help them at some form. Hopefully they'll recover quickly, but I think they still need help.
Thank you, Councillor. Did any other councillor want to speak? I think we've already all spoken. Okay, I will actually comment. Councillor Tom made the point about our package compared with other councils' packages. Having had the privilege of sitting in on many meetings as a result of this pandemic with mayors of other councils and also councils not just within the area, within the north or the east of the area, but also throughout Victoria, we actually have had conversations around what our packages are and how we assist our communities. And I can honestly say Councillor Tom is absolutely right. Banyule City Council has created and is providing one of the most, if not the most, generous support package for all of its residents as best as it possibly can. And this amendment tonight is a recognition that some people need benefit and haven't benefited from the previous past package. So we are continuously listening to our residents and looking at what sort of a package we've created and how we can improve it and in order to benefit for everybody. So thank you very much to all the officers for all the work they're doing around this, because this really does benefit so many other members of our community. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
Yeah, look, Mayor, I think just given the conversation, it might be worthwhile just summing up what it is we're doing at a high level, just so that everyone in the gallery and the public is very clear. So tonight's is about amendments to a package previously delivered by the council. But in summary, you can apply for a complete deferral of your rates for the entire financial year, no interest to be paid, $0. If you're on the JobKeeper, you can apply and get $250 off your rates straight off the bat. If you're on the Job Seeker, you can apply and get $500 straight off your bat. And the conversation, the point number one that there was a bit of conversation about is that the officers are just recognising that some people may not apply for any of this. And the last thing that we would want is for someone in the community not to have applied and to be late on their rate payments and to get an interest charge from the council. And what this does is that avoids that. It's basically saying that if you're late for whatever reason, we are not going to charge you. So this package tonight clarifies and brings it all together. If there's any queries or questions, please ring the council. And I just implore anyone who's watching tonight and our community groups and our community leaders, if you know people who are doing it tough And if you know that they could benefit from this package, get the message out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rick. So I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item 7.6, record of councillor meetings. There are no submitters to this item. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Anyone? Councillor Thom, can I please have a seconder? Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. Councillor Thom, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd just like to congratulate myself on being the last person in this council to move a motion. Thank you.
Councillor Mark, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item?
No need, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, would any other councillor like to speak to the item? I now put that, oh no, no one else spoke, so I can't come back to you, Tom, never mind. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried.
Is that the last time we all voted?
It is. Tried to make it as fun as possible. There are no sealing of documents. There are no notices of motion this evening. We do have general business item. My understanding is we would all like to finish the meeting this evening with quite simply an attitude of gratitude, and we're going to start with Councillor Rick Grotty.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll kick it off just with some wording from our Chief Executive Officer and officers and myself toward you. So congratulations on serving the community so well and leading our council to achieve so much in a year that has thrown up the biggest challenge that we've had with coronavirus. When the pandemic hit, it was important we quickly supported the community. We rolled out the $10.5 million economic support package to help ratepayers, businesses and community groups. There have also been a range of other accomplishments throughout your term that show how committed we are to making a difference and putting us on the right path in the years to come. We adopted the Corporate Emissions Reduction Plan that'll see council achieve carbon neutrality by 2028. We also adopted the Community Emissions Reduction Plan that sets an aspirational target of being carbon neutral by 2040. We reached our target of creating 100 jobs for locals through our Inclusive Jobs program and social enterprise partnerships. And now we set an aspiration of 1,000 jobs by 2025. We secured a good deal, not the best deal and not the deal that we're happy about, but a good deal out of the North East Link for community sporting facilities at Binnack Park, Ford Park and Greensborough Secondary College. We got the Reconciliation Action Plan endorsed and that came through from Reconciliation Australia this week. And there's also been a range of capital works programs, including the 81 million at La Trobe University, of which council was a significant contributor with $5 million. Obviously the Ivanhoe Library, the Bellfield development, and just a whole range of things in the council. And look, on a personal note, as your Deputy Mayor, it's been a real honour and privilege to have been able to serve with you and work with you. It's been an enormously challenging year. And I just think back to, you know, when COVID hit and all the things, all the conversations that you and I and the CEO were having on the weekends and just working out what we were going to do and how we were going to respond. I just think that you've demonstrated enormous leadership for our community this year. And I thank you on behalf of our community and the council. I think we've delivered well this year. You know, it's just more broadly been an enormous privilege to serve with the 7 of you. I know that we're all going up for re-election and I wish all of you the best. I think we've been a terrific council and I think we've achieved a lot for our community. And I'm very proud to have called myself a Banyule councillor over the last 4 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Councillor Rick. Beautiful words. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, it's always a hard act following in behind Councillor Garotti. He's covered the subject matter so well. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for your great leadership. I'd like to especially thank Rick as well, as our Deputy Mayor. He's been a wonderful a colleague to work with, and has also shown great leadership and service to the community. And I should especially draw attention to his excellent knowledge and contributions when it comes to audit and risk, and his contributions to our council in that area, and excellent leadership in all things finance. He's done a wonderful contribution, and our council's lucky to have him. I'd also like to thank all my fellow councillors over this year and the last 4 years. You've been great colleagues, and we've worked together very well in a great collaborative group. Also, the CEO who's come on this year, that's had a very challenging year as well, a fantastic job. All the directors that are here present tonight and the staff at council. This has been perhaps one of the most challenging years I've had, but I'm sure for the community as well. And the community have contributed throughout this challenging year as well. And I'd just like to thank everyone that made Banyule Council what it is this year over the last 4 years. It's been a tremendous honour to be here. This may be the last time I'm here, maybe not, I hope not, but I just want to just let everyone know we have a beautiful council, a wonderful team, and it's really, I couldn't have imagined a better experience over these last 4 years and this last year. Thank you, Mayor, and everyone else.
Beautiful, lovely words. Thank you very much, Peter. And Councillor Tom.
Yes, I'd just like to echo those words as well. I'd like to congratulate you, Mayor Champion, on now a great year. It's a pity it's been a difficult year to be Mayor. A lot of the events and the things that make being Mayor great haven't happened this year, and that's a great pity because they are very enjoyable. But yeah, as Councillor Garotti said, this council's worked very well together, but we've also held each other to the scrutiny, and people put up good ideas and people put up silly ideas, but we've always questioned each other, and the good ideas remain and people support them. But any idea you put up, you have to defend it. You have to make sure that you've got all your arguments lined up. It's not just a matter of putting up an idea and it'll be supported. You have to defend it. You have to make sure it's right, and people question it, and that's the way it should be. But we have worked extremely well together. And I think COVID's even made us stronger together because we realised how important it was to work together to make sure we all got through this. And there's just not the time. With COVID going on and all the pressures under our community, it's not the time for having fighting. It's not the time for councils to be bickering amongst themselves. And there's been none of that at this council. And that's a credit to us all. And I'd also like to thank the staff, particularly our new CEO, who's done a magnificent job. I'm really looking forward. I'm hoping on the council when things get back to normal, if she can perform at the same level when things are good, this will be an even better council to work at. So I'm really thank her and her staff, and Mr. Walker, our new director, Kate, to Mark Julio and all the staff who just, and Jeff Glim, who just support us so much and give us such good advice. And sometimes it's not the advice we want to hear, but it's always good advice. Very, very. And also like to thank the residents who give us the privilege to be here. We have lots of very, very good, hardworking, and we hear it tonight that people want to be engaged. People want to have input into council, and we're a better council because we do have so many residents that are engaged and want to make sure that we make the right decisions and for the right reasons. So I'd like to thank all this, particularly all the regulars that used to turn up at our meeting. I really miss that contact, that warmth we feel when we were coming to the council meeting nights, and our regulars are there and they're all keen for a chat. They all want to know what's going on, and I really miss that side of the process. But I'd also like to thank our families who put up with so much from us, who support us, who look after us, and we're on Zoom meetings, and they allow us that time to do what we do. So I'd like to thank our families very much for the support they give us. But I'd also like to wish us all the best luck. We will get 2 new councillors, but change is good. We do need change. We need fresh ideas. We always need fresh ideas. We always need young people coming in to give us enthusiasm and enthusiasm, you know, and just because, you know, we think we may know it all because we've lived this long, but the people, younger generations have had different experiences, different expectations, and we need we need their ideas and their input as well. So it will be good that this council gets 2 new councillors, but we also do need, you know, change is good. We shouldn't be concerned about change. The world, it's the only thing that is certain in this world is change. So, so I wish all my fellow councillors good luck in the election. I really appreciate the support, the camaraderie, and the good humour we've managed to achieve, and I think it's made being on council a lot easier. You know, when we can work together, when we support each other, it makes life so much easier. So well done, everyone, and hope to see you after the election.
Very heartfelt. Thank you very much, Councillor Tom. Councillor Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start up at the top and filter my way down. Congratulate you for your role as Mayor in this most difficult year. You've done exceptionally well not having any of the benefits of actually being able to relate directly to the community, like at citizenship ceremonies, at the functions, at the volunteers ball, the mayoral community ball, all those sorts of things. But that's one of the highlights of any mayoral year, that you, the mayor of the time, can actually go out and meet the people and get the feedback. You've done exceptionally well despite all that, to be perfectly honest, and you're chairing of Zoom meetings, and there's been quite a few of them, and all that has been magnificent. To your deputy, his financial brain and his way he's done the finance and the way you both work together has been outstanding. To my fellow councillors, they know what I think of them. It's all wonderful. I've enjoyed working with them, but we've made some incredibly brilliant decisions. Can't believe it's less than 12 months ago now. First one, we replaced a long-standing and a brilliant CEO with an even better CEO. That's not a bad achievement, to be perfectly honest. I hope Simon's not listening. But we have done exceptionally well, and it was unanimous that we chose that. That's how well we work together. I think all credit to all us for working that decision out, to our directors and all our staff. They're the public, how would I say it? That's what the public deal with more than anybody else. We can get out and about in a fair bit, but people ringing up, people meeting, all the meetings and all that, it's our staff that put on the public face of council. I'd like to thank all of them. And it has been a great honour to serve the Olympia Award. I lose a third of it, which I'm sad about, but I will always look after that section as well. But I'd like to thank the residents for having faith in me to do the things I've done, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for allowing me to, I think, a lot of catch-up football, be it soccer or Aussie rules, in Olympia Ward, because there's a lot needed to be done and we're still doing it. Belfield's a prime example, so thank you all very much.
Lovely, thank you very much, Councillor Craig. Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. Well said, councillors. Yeah, I also do want to, being our last meeting, I do want to throw out a couple of acknowledgements. Firstly, I'd like to start with our Mayor, Mayor Champion. What a difficult year this year would have been, has been, probably the hardest ever. So for you to be in the role that you've taken, to pull the councillor group together, the way you've done it has been absolutely extraordinary. We're privileged to have you as our mayor, especially in this time period. In the past, a mayor would just, call all the councillors up and say, hey, can you come to the councillor resource room? We need to have a meeting. We need to talk about this and discuss this and that. You did not have that opportunity at all. It was all, all remote, and I don't know how you've done it. I don't know how you've kept us together so well to be able to represent our community. Personally, I haven't felt any difficulty in our meetings. I've just felt difficulty with regards to what's been happening in the community, which is normal. So thank you very much for all your efforts and your commitment to the community. To our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gorotti, thank you very much for your leadership too. Extraordinary backing up our Mayor and also the rest of us councillors too. Your expertise in finance, audit and risk. I've served with you in that committee, and your expertise is extraordinary. Thank you very much for the commitment you have for the community and the expertise you bring to the community. And everywhere else too, your work, your family, it's quite extraordinary. So congratulations. I'd like to acknowledge our CEO. Thank you very much for also, very, very difficult year. Your first year as CEO, I suppose it's what a year. To be able to have your staff talking about you in the way that they do, quite extraordinary. To have them working cohesively the way that they are on behalf of the community, the way that they, just shows true leadership. But I think the true measure of yourself is not necessarily your leadership, but also the leadership of those who you entrust leadership on. So the directors, managers, their leadership is extraordinary, and that comes through the CEO. So very well done, and very well done to our directors and also our managers as well, and also our staff as a whole on behalf of the community. I do also want to acknowledge the community members who did continue to give up their time in our advisory committees. Very, very difficult time, Zoom meetings, etc. Many did continue to meet. Most of them actually did. So thank you very much for your continued commitment to the community. I also want to acknowledge those who continue to keep contributing to our council meetings remotely by video. Those who along the way spoke at our meetings. It's very brave to put yourself up in front of the community, have an opinion on something, and talk and be heard. So thank you very much for everyone who has put their hand up. On a personal note, just very quickly, I do want to thank the Bakewell community for supporting me over the last many years. Look, I am contactable, and as are all councillors over the election period. We are still your councillors. We are contactable still over the time period. Look, I thank you for the privilege of representing you all over the years. Hopefully that can continue. To the councillors in general, good luck with the coming elections, and also good luck to the community members, other community members who have put their hand up in the elections coming up. Very brave, well done, and hopefully see you all in the future. Thank you, Mayor, for that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mark. Beautiful words. Councillor Wayne.
Are you with me? That was my helper's finger. Now, Madam Mayor, you've got to promise me if I talk about you, all good, you're not going to get emotional, because I'm not going to talk about you if you're going to get emotional, because I know you're a very sincere lady. And but I must say, I'm very proud of the job that you've done. So you should be very proud of the job you've done. And hearing from my colleagues, they're also very proud. It would be disrespectful, but I'll say it anyway. You have surprised me in your mayoralship term. You followed. You had to follow someone with big shoes, if not big mouth, and if not big shoes, and you have done very well. I'm disappointed for you as mayor, having had an opportunity as mayor on a number of occasions, that you didn't fulfil what I believe to be the complete mayoral year, which is a couple of good things in representing the community. And I think Councillor Langdon spoke about them being the community ball and citizenships, which is, a great opportunity to meet a whole range of community members and many other things that you had to do over the net. And I hope that in the future, I'm confident that you will be back here after the next election. I'm hoping that if you are, and in the future you want to put your hand up, I believe you'd be supported by the council again for another opportunity, if that's what you want, because you didn't have what I believe to be that sincere year. To Councillor Gorotti, he's been a good deputy. He certainly led us in many areas to do with the financial aspects, and I think that's the beauty about this council, that we have 7 individuals who have some expertise, and that expertise is able to come forward where others trust that expertise and run with it and generally support it. Why are we a good council? We're a good council because we've got a team of good officers behind us. The staff has just been fantastic. We've got a new CEO who was the director, so was part of the team anyway, who's had a difficult start, but in some respects, it's been a challenge for you, Alison, and you've handled that well. The 2 Allisons have worked well together, so it's been a great Allison team, but a fantastic set of directors behind them, our CEO, who've been very united and very loyal to her, and then the team behind the directors. So we've been great. And why have we been great and not been in the public eye is because we've worked for the community at all times, worked closely together as a team, set policies, and the officers implement them policies, put politics aside, put our own interests aside, and the only priority was what's in the best interest of the community. So I'm confident that most of us that have renominated will get back, because I think the community will support us, and that will be the endorsement on the great job that we've done under difficult circumstances. We're certainly, if we do get back with 2 new councillors, it's going to be a challenging new set of guidelines and year with 9 rather than 7, but we'll handle that well. The new mayor will have some new challenges as well, but all I can say is to my colleagues, thank you. It's been a difficult 2020, one that I want to forget. It's been, in some respects, beside the coronavirus, besides all the other difficult, personally, I've had a difficult year with a few health issues. Over them now, looking forward to hopefully being supported by the community, getting re-elected, and another challenging 4 years. So congratulations. I wish all my colleagues well. Congratulations to you and Rick for your great deputy mayoral year. I thank the officers sincerely, and let's hope 2021 is going to be a great year for us all.
Thank you
That's
very
it,
much.
no more.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wayne. I don't think I cried, so that was good.
Very good.
Very kind, very generous words. Thank you very much for your support. And look, you know, all of you have mentioned, certainly at the start of the mayoral term, I had visions of many enthusiastic celebrations for this year, like we do, things like the volunteer awards, the citizenship ceremonies, International Women's Day, I love and I didn't do, Twilight Sounds, art exhibitions, opening sporting pavilions and ovals, and our little jewel in the crown, the opening of the Ivanhoe Library was meant to happen last week and didn't. And less than 5 months into this year, this mayoral term, if you like, those visions changed. And as a couple of months passed, they actually ceased to exist. And the conversations became a lot more challenging, and decisions were made differently. And they're often made really quickly because they had to be for the benefit of functioning as leaders. And they often were made, decisions were often made not as people expected them to be made. And sometimes there was disappointment. And sometimes there was no thanks, and there was no congratulations or gratitude. There was just, this is how it is. Several of you have mentioned this evening that I didn't get to have a proper mayoral year. Other people have said that throughout the year, and that maybe I missed out on all the glory of the role. I've taken a different view. I got the mayoral term that I deserved, that I have personally been working towards. And that included events that I got to step up. I got to work closely with our new CEO, whom I got to appoint with you all last November. I learned how to do things like create informative videos which are worthy for posting to the public. Performing at public events kind of occurred in a slightly different way. And look, I was facing a camera, we're facing a screen, rather than looking at our community, looking at other human beings, engaging with them by looking in their eye or giving them a hug or a handshake. No emotion comes back from a camera. And I had to learn to be okay with that. And I am okay with that. Holding challenging conversations with residents, officers, my fellow councillors during this sudden change in lifestyle that we all had to tolerate, and knowing eventually that it's not likely to end anytime soon. I got to make quick decisions for the benefit as many people as possible, and accepting that some people would be bitterly disappointed and tell me exactly what they think. And I'm okay with that too. All of these activities actually allowed me to step up as a leader, to be out of my comfort zone, and more importantly, to function at a higher level to create outcomes that we have achieved since March, as mentioned by Councillor Rick. So I want to thank all our officers, our executive management team, and our CEO for their unwavering support, for sharing their time and their knowledge, their experience, their patience and advice. Thank you to you, to our community, for all of your input. Thank you for your comments, your emails, your text messages, your phone calls. Thank you for your videos. We didn't see that coming this time last year. Thank you for your contribution to all of us and to our city. And for me, there's nothing worse than being out of communication. There's nothing worse than the crickets, the silence, the brick wall. And any way that you have contributed has allowed for conversation, it's allowed for progress, understanding, and all of those activities that make up Banyul's communities and our humanity. And I want to make a special thank you to my Hordern Wards residents specifically for their support. Thank you so much for your belief in me and your faith in me as a majority. I've really appreciated it and I've loved getting to know you better. My first 4 years on council has been a privilege and a pleasure in so many ways, and none more so than meeting and working with the 6 men who have made this councillor group along with me. And I particularly want to thank and acknowledge my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti. We were the most distant councillors in the group in 2016 when we were elected. And it took us at least 2.5 years to come to appreciate each other. Councillor Rick has been my rock during some very challenging times this year. And it has been an honour to have him by my side throughout this mayoral term, as a fellow leader to bounce ideas off and have frank and authentic conversations with. So Councillor Rick, thank you for being who you are for all of us and for being there when I have needed you. I've loved having you as my deputy. I would also like to specifically thank our CEO, Alison Beckwith, who also has been there whenever I have needed her to answer any question I've had and provided me sound advice for anything related to council. So Alison, thank you so much for being there for me as well and for us as a group. I want to share something with you all, something a bit more personal. I was asked a couple of years ago by one of my residents, how do you cope with all those awful men? And at the time, I didn't really know what to say because that wasn't actually my reality. And I've just had that ticking over in my head for the last couple of years, and I've formulated the following response. The word awful doesn't come to mind when I think about these men. I think of these words: respectful, gracious, funny, silly, kind, thoughtful, grateful, mature, mostly, highly skilled, extremely knowledgeable, well-educated, collaborative, authentic, generous, committed, and above all, passionate. And they clearly show a love for their communities. And I am so blessed to have them in my life, in my time on council. And finally, I would like to thank my boys, Nicholas and Christopher, whom you all know as Nicky and Cricky, for their patience and understanding. They have matured enormously over the past 4 years, from primary age through to high school age. And they have taken my role and my public life in their stride. I am very proud of them and I love them very much. And they will thank me later. So that brings us to the end of this council meeting, this last council meeting for the term. The first meeting of council after the election has been declared. It's supposed to be the 13th of November, we'll see. And that will be the mayoral election on the 18th of November 2020. The next ordinary meeting of council will be held on Monday, the 23rd of November 2020. And I now close the meeting at 9:36 p.m. And I thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. Good night.